We're going to look at how we can read CSV files. CSV files are really useful because we can open them in spreadsheets and we can also open them and treat them as text files. CSV stands for comma separated values, and the way they're presented is shown in the bottom right hand side here in the text file we have here. So each element is separated by a comma. And in this example, we have 3 rows, and on each row we have basically a record, in this case pertaining to a student and the various marks that that student had in some tests. And as you can see, there's basically 5 different columns there that we have. Okay, so we have the first name, the surname of the student, plus 3 marks from 3 different assessments. Okay, so that's the structure of this particular data set, but of course we could have more columns and we can have more records and so on. So this is a fairly straightforward example, and what we're going to do is we're going to read that data set in, and we're going to read it into a 2-dimensional list, because that seems a really sensible way of proceeding and storing the data, because that way then when the data is in a 2-dimensional list, then you can explore the data and you can examine the data in different ways. Also notice we have the same data set, exactly the same file opened, but we've opened it now in a spreadsheet as opposed to in an editor. On the right hand side we have it being opened in an editor. On the left hand side, the bottom left, we have it being opened in a spreadsheet. Exactly the same data file, but just opened in different ways. So that's what I mean by it being really useful, that you can view it in a text file and also in a spreadsheet. Let's now read the CSV file. So we're going to start by, in the normal way that we already know how to do this, so we're just going to open the file for reading. So the file is called students.csv. Again, don't let the CSV worry you in any way. It's still just a standard text file, except it just has a different extension called .csv. And then we're going to read that. So do that. Next thing, we're going to create a list. This is going to be our 2-dimensional list, which we're going to put all our data in. So we're going to use read lines to read in all of the data. So let's do that. So we're going to have here a for loop. So we're going to for line in read lines. So this will read a line in at a time, and we're going to do line equals line dot strip. Now what this will do is, at the end of each line we have a new line character, so we need to take that out. So we're going to remove that. That's the first thing we're going to do. We're then going to split our line along the comma, because that's what's separating each of our elements. So the comma is what separates. That's why we put a comma in here. Okay, and then finally we are going to append line. Now line is a list in itself. What we're going to do is going to append that to data to create our 2-dimensional list, and then we're going to then just simply print data. We're going to save that and run it, and we have a problem there. So it should be for line in file.readlines. So we missed off that file there, easy thing to do. So again, let's run it again. So we can see there it's put this into a 2-dimensional list, and as I said, this is probably the most useful way of putting our data into a 2-dimensional list, so that way then we can do further manipulations of that once we've read it into a 2-dimensional list. Let's just take a step back and interrogate what's happening with lines. So I'm going to comment out line 7 and 8, and in fact 10 as well. And I'm just going to print out, well, first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to print out line at this stage. So I'm going to do line here, so print line, and again I'm going to run it. you can see what's happened there. So it's got printing out each of the lines, and then it's also printing out the new line character, which is the reason why there's a space between each of the lines that's printed out. Okay, so now if we strip this line out and then we print line, so we're stripping out the new line character, and if I run the code now, you can see it's removed the new line character because there's no line separating each of those records. And then again, I'll do the same thing again, but now doing the split. So the split then will basically create a list with each of those elements in there. So you can see that's created a list with 5 elements in each list. And then finally then the append puts the lines into a 2-dimensional list, which you already know.